You should see it on the side.
Many thanks, Abigail, and good morning, everybody. I'm very, very pleased to welcome to the very first cluster policy webinar in the area of understanding. First of all, I would like to thank the colleagues in the Cancer Mission Secretariat for making this possible, which was a great team effort, I can tell you, as well as the Cancer Mission board members that participate in today's webinar, and also the colleagues from HADEA that provided us valuable input to this webinar today. I would like also to thank our hosts, Abigail from the Health Policy Platform and Clementine, as well as Lucas and his team from the EU Cancer Mission Support Consortium. Before we start, I want to remind you that you, the audience, have several opportunities to participate by putting questions on Mentimeter, so not in the chat, or by raising your hands on WebEx. As we have 20 minutes for the audience participation during each of the two panel sessions, we might not be able to answer all your questions. It's very interesting. We see it by the high number of registration. So we ask you to limit your questions and comments to the theme of today's panels in the webinar. If there are further questions, we will look at them after the webinar. So they are welcome, but we won't be able to answer them during today's webinar. We are very much looking forward to a lively interaction among the panelists and then with you as the audience coming in. But first, we have a question for you, or a question. What do you expect from this first policy webinar? So please come in, tell us your expectations. We will use Mentimeter to ask the questions. So the QR code you should find or should appear on the screen. It's there, I see. So please use that to answer our very first question.
Okay, Annika, as you see, a lot of people already participate. We have 60 responses so far, and I think we will leave that open for another minute. But nice to see that a lot of people would like to better understand actually the concept of the Cancer Mission, which I think it's very good insight. I mean, the missions are a rather new concept under this program. So information spreading is key here. So everyone knows benefits of what the Cancer Mission is trying to achieve. But also I think the projects and what has been supported so far is very important.
Yes, thank you. It's really encouraging, and yeah, indeed, the Cancer Mission concept with all the elements, with the project cluster being one of them, are important to understand. So thanks for your feedback. Also in terms of what is all the mission about, we just published a newsletter yesterday, so we will also encourage you to read that. Thanks for this, and now I'm glad to hand over to Irene Norstedt, our director in the Directorate D, Directorate People, Health and Society, for your opening remarks. Over to Irene, thank you.
Thank you so much, Annika, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Good. So thank you so much, and let me also warmly welcome you to this first project cluster policy webinar that we have organized under the EU Cancer Mission since its launch in September 2021. I understand there are actually 860 people who have registered for the webinar today, and I hope that also reflects the great interest in the Cancer Mission and in the cluster work that is going on. So the Cancer Mission aims at improving the lives of more than 3 million people by 2030, and to do that through prevention, cures, and for those affected by cancer and their families to live longer and better. And the purpose of today's webinar is to bring together stakeholders and citizens' perspectives on research and innovation to provide an early exposure to the cluster projects launched under the Cancer Mission, and to show and demonstrate what's going on to other researchers, policymakers, and citizens. With new projects under the Cancer Mission, we launched the first Cancer Mission clusters in September 2022. And the purpose is to build a portfolio of projects that address each of the 4 Cancer Mission objectives. So there are 4 clusters that has been established. So one is on understanding, and this includes projects funded under the Cancer Mission in the area of risk factors and determinants, and projects funded in the area of tumor-host interactions. The second cluster relates to prevention and early detection with projects on screening, implementation research, and behavioral change. The third cluster is on diagnosis and treatment, which includes projects on refractory cancers and project on diagnostics. And the fourth cluster is on the quality of life. The goal of these clusters is to maximize the investment of the EU Cancer Mission takes in research, and by engaging researchers who lead projects areas to ask to build synergies among projects and to conduct activities to ensure researchers benefit from each other's insights. This activity will ultimately contribute to mobilizing the cancer research community at large, and it will ensure coherent messages are brought to them about what research can do to benefit them. And clusters will contribute to testing how we can use the results from the cancer portfolio to feedback to policy, and also inform cancer-related policy and research activities that the EU should focus on. We believe that by having project works in clusters, it improves communication, citizen engagement, and also helps to achieve the early impact of project results, which we will be exploring in the second panel of today. During the webinar this morning, we have 2 panel discussions moderated by Cancer Mission Board members. And first, we will invite discussion on the first impressions from working in an understanding project cluster. Second, we will invite reflections on ensuring early uptake of the research results from the understanding cluster project. We are looking forward to a lively discussion, and we want you, the audience, to participate in these discussions. And the panels are made up of coordinators of projects from the cluster, and they will be joined by other stakeholders, such as a coordinator from an IMI2 funded project, an SME which has received funding from the EIC, as well as policymakers and patients organizations. As part of the policy webinar, we have also produced an abstract book of projects in the understanding of Cancer Mission projects, Horizon 2020, IMI2, ERC, EIC, etc. So this will have, you will have the opportunity to look through this, and this will provide a great overview of all the work which is ongoing in the area of understanding cancer. And the book of abstracts will be circulated to all the attendees of this webinar. And with this webinar that we have today, it is the first one, as I mentioned, we will kick off a series of webinars, and we intend to organize webinars for each one of the 4 clusters in the course of the next months. So with that, I will hand back to Annika. I wish you all a very nice webinar. Do take the opportunity, ask the questions that you are thinking about, and please do interact as much as possible, because this webinar is really for you to understand much more, and that's also what we saw in the Mentimeter there, that's why you are here. So please do take the opportunity to interact and ask any question that you would like. So I wish you all a good webinar, and Annika, back to you.
Thank you, Irene, for your kind words and setting the scene for today's webinar. So we can start, but we would like to start with an introduction to the projects and the clusters. I will now ask Dr. Susanna Puig, who is the coordinator of the Melkaya project in the area of risk factors and determinants. She will give us an overview of the Cancer Mission Understanding Cluster. After that, we will show a video, which is one of the outputs or joint activities to show the collaboration between the different projects. So first, over to Susanna, and then we will see the video. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be this morning with all of you and be able to present the very interesting projects that are funded by EU in this understanding of cancer. I will start explaining these projects that are inside this understanding cancer, risk factors and determinants. And the first one is Lucia. Lucia is a project that tries to understand better lung cancer and associate it with other risk factors beyond the tobacco smoking, and also trying to understand new strategies for screening. This project pretends to identify personal risk factors, including chemical pollutants, behavioral factors, and lifestyle factors. Also, external risk factors as urbanity, the use of transport, social aspects, or climate change. And finally, cellular processes analyzed in genetics, epigenetics, metabolomics, and aging. And with all this, generate policy maker recommendations to implement them in the screening program for lung cancer. The next slide, you can see the members of this consortium. The second project is the one that I'm coordinating, that is Melkaya, that is a novel healthcare strategies for melanoma in children, adolescents, and young adults. In this project, what we pretend is to integrate existing reference European cores and registries and studies of genetic and environmental risk factors to better understand the incidence and the progression of melanoma from benign to malignant lesions in Kaya that are children, adolescents, and young adults. Also using different omics methods to create a novel taxonomy of Kaya melanoma in this cohort. Also, Melkaya pretend to develop image-based, robust, and trustable machine learning tools and a pan-European second opinion platform for better diagnosis of this disease. Moreover, we pretend the validation of minimally and non-invasive disruptive tools based on artificial intelligence using imaging, liquid biopsy, and also volatomics. And finally, we pretend to implement public health strategies and actively involve patients and general population in this implementation. In the next slide, you can see also all the members of this consortium. The other project that is also in this cluster is Discern, that tried to discover the causes of 3 poorly understood cancers in Europe: renal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and colorectal cancer. They tried to obtain data from large-scale European biorepositories and integrate state-of-the-art exposomics and proteomics techniques, as well as genomic technologies, to uncover novel causes for each of these 3 cancer types, to develop new prevention strategies. The CERN has 5 core objectives. First, establish a biorepository comprising extensive case series from across Europe. Second, discover novel risk factors and causal pathways. Third, identify exogenous and endogenous factors. 4, exploit human organoids and stem cell models to identify the biological mechanisms through which the identified cancer risk factors promote carcinogenesis. In last, disseminate these findings to citizens, patients, and relevant stakeholders. In the next slide, you can see all the members of this project. Next one, GENIAL, pretends to understand gene-environmental interaction in alcohol-related hepatocarcinoma. This intervention aims to improve prevention and early detection. They recently performed the first genome-wide association study on alcohol-related hepatocarcinoma and identify some predisposing genetic variations. But the objective of GENIAL is to identify new inherited genetic variations associated to alcohol hepatocarcinoma. Also to characterize how these inherited genetic variations are influenced by environmental molecular features. To provide a comprehensive characterization of these environmental features, including lifestyle, diet, socioeconomic factors, and to identify how they can be integrated in histological, radiological, and genetic information that can be training and AI models to better classify and diagnose risk in patients. This project also pretends to identify machine learning approaches with highest potential for clinical application and integrate them in results with already existing nodes of data and deposition in relevant repositories to ensure a close monitoring of all this compliance in Europe. In the next slide, you can see the members of this cluster, of this project. The next project that also belongs to this cluster is ELMUMI. ELMUMI pretends to elucidate risk factors and health determinants associated with progression of monoclonal gammopathies to multiple myeloma. The main goals of these projects are to create a comprehensive database of existing samples, to collect new samples with complementary missing features to the previous ones, to elucidate molecular features and risk factors associated with this progression model from monoclonal gammopathies to multiple myeloma, and to investigate the biological association with these molecular features and risk factors. Also to assess the effectiveness of selected drugs on prevention of the onset of multiple myeloma in animal models, and to develop an AI-based model for personalized prediction of multiple myeloma progression based on all of the potential risk factors and health determinants. These are the members of this consortium. Now we will move to the second cluster, understanding tumor-host interaction. In this, the first project included is TRIEF, a tumor-host interaction in liver cancer in childhood and adults. This project pretends to understand the causative processes and key determinants of liver cancer development, to decipher the molecular and cellular tumor-host interactions by understanding the immune and stromal cell population interaction and exploring the intratumoral microbiome component, to develop the reliable tools predicting response to immune therapies by developing molecular biomarkers and generating an AI tool for guidance in decision making, to propose innovative, socially acceptable, and affordable new treatments, to integrate the discoveries with other European Union resources and initiatives, and finally, to impact health policy makers and healthcare professionals. In the next slide, you will see the components of this consortium. The next project, GlioMatch, is focused in glioma immune oncology, trying to identify data-driven precision medicine using spatial resolved radio multiomics. The GlioMatch project aims to improving the clinical outcome of glioma patients and by enabling immunology-based patient stratification to empower personalized matching of appropriate immune therapy while improving follow-up of clinical responses to existing novel therapies. This will achieve by integrating spatially resolved multi-layer tissue maps using integrated single-cell multiomics with non-invasive MRI images. And in here you can see the members of this consortium. Next project, MULTIR, include different tumor types and try to understand the tumor-host interaction. MULTIR ambitiously compiles comprehensive data on melanoma, lung, and bladder cancers, enabling to precisely identify key elements of tumor-host interactions that are responsible for therapeutic responses. The expected impact of MULTIR is significant on multiple levels. Scientifically, it aims to improve our understanding of tumor-host interactions. Technically, it will create a unique and harmonized data resource of 3 major cancers types, accessing to the research community with legal and ethical frameworks. And societally, it promises to stimulate drug discovery and development of AI-based predictors for treatment responses, improving patients' outcomes. And the next slide, you can see the members of MULTIR. HIT-GLIO. It's targeting tumor-host interactions in pediatric malignant gliomas to reinvigorate immunity and improve radio and immune therapy efficacy. This project pretends to achieve a combination of the latest single-cell technologies and multimodal imaging to characterize tumor immune cells interactions in a large spectrum of glioma patients, create cellular and animal models of integrating complexity, evaluate hypoxia-inducible epigenetics inhibitors, generate nanocarriers to target immune cells and deliver drugs to the brain, and to develop more effective CAR T cells. All of them to assess neurodevelopmental alterations and psychological consequences of the disease in these patients. Finally, there are another 2 projects, Arturo and Space-Time, that just signed the grant agreement. In consequence, we will, as you can see, we share many interests in the different projects that we can discuss in the future, how we can help from one project to another. Many of them try to use multiomics. Many of them will use AI and machine learning. Many of them will face with the difficulties of sharing data through Europe. And I think that this can be really helpful for the different projects belonging to the different clusters. And now we will proceed to see the video that we prepared for you. Thank you very much for your attention.
The Understanding Risk Factors and Determinants cluster consists of 5 projects that received funding from the European Commission through the Horizon Europe's Mission Cancer program. The overarching goal of the mission on cancer is to improve the lives of more than 3 million people by 2030 through prevention, cures, and for those affected by cancer and their families, to live longer and better. Genial, Understanding Gene-Environment Interaction in Alcohol-Related Hepatocellular Carcinoma. Lucia, Understanding Lung Cancer-Related Risk Factors and Their Impact. ELMAMI, Elucidation of Risk Factors and Health Determinants Associated with Progression of Monoclonal Gammopathies to Multiple Myeloma. Discern, Discovering the Causes of 3 Poorly Understood Cancers in Europe. And finally, MELCAIA, Novel Healthcare Strategies for Melanoma in Children, Adolescents, and Young Adults.
Lucia deals with the risk factors for lung cancer, and lung cancer is one of the most deadliest cancers worldwide, where every 30 seconds, one person dies somewhere in the world from the disease itself. And the major issue behind it, it's the late diagnosis of the disease, as well as the lack of understanding why this cancer progress or initiated.
I'm Eric Trépeau. I am an hepatologist and research associate working at the Université Libre de Bruxelles in Brussels, Belgium. And the project that I'm coordinating is called GENIAL. First, we will investigate in large cohorts what are the genetic factors that we will investigate through genome-wide association studies. And this cohort will compare patients with and without liver cancer. Then we will try to understand at the cellular level how these genetic factors play with environmental risk and how they will promote hepatocellular carcinoma. And finally, we will validate our findings in large cohort of patients using AI.
So our project is called Discern, and Discern stands for Discovering the Causes of 3 Poorly Understood Cancers in Europe: renal, pancreatic, and colorectal cancer. And we hope to understand the reasons why the rates of these cancers are varied across Europe.
ELMAMI is a research project aiming to understand the onset and progression of multiple myeloma, a hematological malignancy that cannot be cured currently. So our aim and ultimate goal is to find novel biomarkers and novel cures in order to help improve patient outcomes.
The main subject of MELCAIA project is to better understand the risk factors and the development of melanoma in children, adolescents, and young adults. Also incorporating the study of children with giant congenital melanocytic nevi as a precursor of melanoma.
Lucia is aiming to understand the risk factors behind the lung cancer, and this is the main item of the whole cluster per se. But we will do so in our case not only by understanding the environmental or the macro scale risk factors, but we will do it based on the cellular mechanism per se, and this is another addition value for the mission itself.
Therefore, in Discern, we aim to understand the causes of the uneven distribution of these cancers and uncover the novel risk factors associated. So by employing cutting-edge techniques, we hope to discover novel causes for the development and progression of these cancers. And our aim is that this knowledge could be used to develop new preventative strategies.
The understanding cluster objectives are relevant to understanding how cancer is initiated and then progresses. So the goals of ELMAMI are totally relevant and in alignment with the general EU requirements.
Our project contributes to the understanding cluster objectives, putting together our interests in sharing and distributing all the knowledge generated in our projects. Also, better understanding how confidential data can be managed when we apply artificial intelligence algorithms for improved health of our patients. And also because we use similar technologies analyzing volatile substances for early diagnosis of progression of the disease.
Objectives of the Understanding Cluster: sharing and agreeing on common practices for data material management, collaborations in technology, tools, knowledge, and best practices for data exploitation and computational AI modeling, sharing and cross-comparison of risk factors and molecular features, cross-comparison and integration risk stratification early diagnosis tools, sharing of best practices on implementation of healthcare policies.
So I hope you have enjoyed the video, which gave you more details on some of the projects, those of the first batch, so to say, on risk factors and determinants. Let me also thank Susanna for the great overview of all the projects, and that now leads us to the first panel, which is on the clustering cancer mission projects. So what are the first impressions from working together in these cluster? And this session will be moderated by Professor Christine Chomien, who is the Vice Chair of the Cancer Mission Board. So without any further ado, over to Christine. Thank you for moderating today.
Thank you, Annika. Good morning to everyone and welcome to this first panel, which is on first impressions from working together in the Cancer Mission Understanding Project Cluster. As Irene Norsted summarized to you in the introduction, as a request from patients and also in line with the mission concept, working in clusters for the mission cancer projects was important to set up. Working in clusters for the mission cancer projects was important. It enables to stop working in silos, but essentially to share the project's experiences and solutions to work along the mission concept, and most specifically in bringing all the willing stakeholders together in the co-construction and communication of the research, and this includes patients, citizens. So over the next 40 minutes, we will discuss this topic with the panel here. And then, of course, after that, there will be time for you, the audience, to come in and participate with the panel discussion. And Lucas has already highlighted to you in the chat how to do this, but I will repeat it at the end of our first discussions. So first, let me introduce you to the panel members of today's first impressions in working in a mission cancer understanding cluster. So the panel members are, they are essentially coordinators or project managers in the projects that have been highlighted to you and that you also have in the abstract book. So Frédéric De Smet, who's the coordinator of the GlioMatch project, Osam Hek, who is also the coordinator of Lucia, Adrian Lopez, project manager of the Melkaya project, Alexia Parson, who's head of division project group at the National Decade Against Cancer from the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, and then Beatrice Credi, who's part of the European Liver Patient Association and who is partner in 2 projects that have been presented to you, the Thrive project and Genial. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for participating in this panel today. And so what we have suggested for all of you is I will ask you a specific question relating to this topic and the challenges and of co-construction with the stakeholders in these research projects. And then we will discuss all together later on. So my first question is to you, Adrian. So I'll just remind you that Adrian is the project manager of Melkaya, who's in the group Risk Factors and Determinants. Adrian, good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you here with us today, and congratulations for the project.
I wanted to mention that Indian Professor Susanna Puig is here to join us from us in the member, so I think she will reply the question.
Oh, hello, Susanna. Well, hello once again. I mean, thank you also for your presentation, very clear, and it's nice to be able to have one person presenting all these projects. Shows the concrete representation of a cluster. So thank you very much for being here. So my first question to you is, how do you think being in a cluster with other projects in the same pool improve your research? Your personal research, not just understanding.
Yes.
Cancer.
First of all, I think that we can be more effective because many times we expend efforts trying to understand how to develop a data transfer agreement, documentation, applications to ARVs concerning AI that is completely different from the projects that we were used to do. And in all these things, the expertise of one group can be translated to others, and then we can be more efficient in the way that we can learn one project to another, how to deal with all these difficulties, mainly for the documentation that we need to ensure the when we are working with confidential data, how we can do that in Europe. And this is extremely important. The second thing that is more at the scientific level, I think that will be extremely interesting, but we are still at the beginning of that because we are used, as you said, to work in different walls. And at the end, we see that in different cancers, we are dealing with the same questions, we are using the same technology, and we can transfer knowledge and transfer results from one project to another. One project can be controlled from another, can revalidate data from another. And this is something that it's very promising, but we need to work a little bit more on that.
So one further question, which is something that probably you have felt as a coordinator of a project, it's already important to gather the trust of the people in your consortia to work together. And so how do your consortia feels in working with other consortia? Is it difficult to put the trust in a bigger context, in a cluster?
This is a good question. I'm not completely sure about the answer. For sure, you know that in science it's so important to be able to publish your results or to patent a result, and then sharing and to be open is extremely important. But at the same time, if you want a discovery it's arriving to the patients, you need to protect them. And then this is something that probably we need to discuss in deep. It's not a question of trusting only, but also how we can protect the results of science, because you know that if we do not protect them, they will never arrive to the clinical practice, because if it is not protected, is no company that can have interest in promote the application.
Which is,
at least
which is very good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Which is very good. And this is why I think it's important at the beginning of this session to really show everybody in the audience that the cluster is to share experiences on how the work is done and how the communication on the research is done and how the methodology to bring the stakeholders together is done and perceived. The project itself remains with the project researchers, and that is not shared until the end of the project. Yes, the cluster is only in the methodology of bringing everybody together, not in merging the research projects themselves. Yes, I think it was important to make this clear, and Ajdia has really made it very clear in the way the cluster meetings are being held. It's only in the methodology of working together. Each project remains protected in its delivery. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you would like to highlight on this on these challenges or benefit of working in clusters?
Not from my side. I think that it's something that it's new and we need to learn how to work and how to do, but for sure it will benefit our team, but also our consortium and probably science.
Okay, thank you very much. But it was important to have these few moments to highlight the concept of working in clusters and how the research projects themselves are still protected in this concept of cluster working. So now I'm going to Hosanne. Hosanne, hello. You're the coordinator of Lucia, which was presented by you in the video, but also by Susanna. So you have in your consortia, in your project, you've organized what you call a social lab. And so can you describe it a bit to us, and how does it relate with maybe citizens' engagement in your project?
Absolutely. I will answer this question, but before I want to just to continue what Susanna has started to say about the cluster engagement of the coordinators and the different researchers. As Lucia was the first project to arrange the meeting of this cluster in San Sebastian last September, I would say that it's really amazing to see the attitude of the coordinators and the researchers to find the common between the different projects rather than only the differences. And this is a great attitude, which always try to find how we overcome the challenges. And I think with this attitude, we might and will proceed quite forward with the cluster mission as described earlier. And besides that, a month ago, we have arranged the social lab, which means an initiative to engage citizens. And we will do that every year. And before I just proceed, what is really was there in the meeting, I would like just to say a little bit about the objective of the social lab workshop, which was to enhance the citizen engagement by fostering collaboration, innovation, and ethical consideration among all the stakeholders that range from, of course, as I have told, citizens, industry, organizations, policymakers, and so on and so forth. And in this context, the aim of the social lab was to understand the stakeholder perceptions on the projects that we have led and the other projects within this cluster, to set common goals that everybody will agree upon in order to implement those in the future, and to plan realistic engagement activities. And here I want to emphasize the realistic rather than theoretical ones. And the other objective which we have led is the co-creation and the ethical consideration, which is quite critical in the era of AI and the era of technology. And in this case, we have involved stakeholders in the development process and to hear the expectations, ideas, and to address the ethical concerns. In terms of the operation per se, we have discussed in the social lab meeting that has arranged a month ago, several activities such as the coordination of social media efforts to produce podcast series where we can just share knowledge through our discussions and to outreach these discussions to the public and to the scientific community. To arrange events that we call Night of Science in different countries, in different places, and to explore, of course, cost consortium application. And all of these activities aim to create a more inclusive and effective engagement strategy. And this is one of the main emphases, because again, we think that our role as scientists and as a consortium is not only to develop a science or technology, which is great, but rather also to serve our community and our society. And this is where we need to be connected and bonded to their concerns and comments and expectations. The impact of these efforts, of course, is quite significant, as this will foster a collaboration environment that would integrate diverse perspective and expertise, which ensure both innovative and ethically sound initiatives.
That's, I think, which I particularly like the night sessions that going at the local level is something which I think is crucial. We've had, people talking about going to schools. We've had after work drinking in cafes. But yes, the night session, I think, is something that I really can adhere to. How are the citizens and the patients engaging themselves? Do they participate also as ambassadors to be able to talk about the science? Is this something that they want to do, can do in your social lab, or is it too early?
Absolutely. This is one of the main items, that to consider the citizens as the ambassadors to talk about science, not only to share science from the consortium per se to the public, but rather to reflect the public perception and concerns and comments to the consortium. So we will take all of these into consideration during the R&D, which we do within the consortium itself. And therefore, our attitude is that we consider the citizen as a co-creation process, where we involve them in the planning and the decision making to ensure the input shapes real outcomes and real impact for the long term itself. And of course, this will include a lot of activities that range in two different ways, from bottom up, from the citizen and public to the consortium and the cluster. And of course, we share back from the consortium and the cluster top down also the R&D, so we will get the reflection upon that.
Good. And my last question is, how do you see the other stakeholders participating with citizens and patients in this co-construction? Is it fluid?
The other stakeholders, mainly the policymakers, industry, for example, and SMEs, it's more sensitive issues, but this is our role as coordinators and as researchers within this consortium and the cluster to serve as the mediator between parties that might have some sensitivities in terms of IPs or knowledge how or industry secrets. And I think step by step we will close or narrow the gap between these two different parties. And I would say that I have already one or two examples where companies that involved in our consortium have started to engage more public, more citizen income, as they think that this would be the best way to tailor their solutions into something that can be digested and taken by the public back.
So yes, I'm optimistic also. I do believe that it's only by starting and by putting the frame that the trust builds, and it usually works very well. So congratulations from this initiative, and I hope that not only the cluster, because you're already in the cluster, but also the audience will benefit from your experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I'm moving to Alexia. So Alexia is not per se a coordinator of one of these projects, but as head of division of the National Decade Against Cancer, I remember that during the presidency of Germany, there was a lot of work which was being done in how to engage patients in research, with a very strong document also that was published. So can you share your experience, because you're at another level where I would say it's probably more difficult to engage with citizens and patients. So please tell us more about your experience during this work and your current work now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Right from the beginning of the National Decade Against Cancer, patient involvement is a very important issue for us. And Germany was actually lagging a little bit behind. So it was more or less a cultural change that we were aiming at. So we thought we need to look at this systematically and work from all angles. So what we did is, like in really the highest steering committee, in all working groups, we involve patient representatives, and they sit in these groups at eye level. They have the same right to promote research issues, or to say what are the things that we really want to move forward. The other thing that we said is, like, we need to follow the money. So whenever a project is being funded by the National Decade Against Cancer, you have to show that you involve patients in the project. And if there's really a reason that for this particular project it doesn't make any sense, then you have to say why. And you have to have good reasons for that. Otherwise, there's no way to get funded. Another thing is that we have patient representatives in all our juries. The way you need a statistician to say, to review the statistics, you need a patient representative to review patient involvement in a project. So there's another really important point where we see, if you want to have patients involved, you really need to do it at all levels. And the last thing you just mentioned, during the German EU presidency, we initiated a bottom-up process where we had patient representatives all over Germany to develop right principles, to see, like, what are the principles that we need, that everyone needs to follow if you want to make patient involvement happen. So we've done this for more than 5 years now. We see results, and we get very positive feedback, not only from patient representatives, but also from researchers who see the benefit in this.
Which I find personally the most difficult part is we are convinced, but then it needs to be able to convince the other stakeholders in research. And as you started off by saying, it is a change in the culture of how we do research and how we do research in cancer. So like all changes, it takes time, but I'm very happy for the people who have started doing it, which is of course your experience, because then people are in the right setting to be able to benefit and to understand that it's for their benefit also. Somehow I also agree with you, coming from France and the research and innovation field, that sometimes it needs to be compulsory, that this needs to be set down. It's also important that patients and citizens do not only sit, which is the first step, right? The first step, and we congratulate everybody who invites patients and citizens to sit on their board and their jury committees. The next step is to allow them to talk and to engage, which also is important for the patients. And so, do you have maybe one or two examples that you can share with the audience about the benefits and the advantages that you see in having the participation of citizens and patients in one or two committees that you have in mind?
I think the patients have a very unique view on their in the whole issue. So it is really important to implement this view into the research. It's like it may lead to different topics. It may also lead to different endpoints. We think that patient-reported outcomes are very important, and here we also need patients. So I think there are many things, there are many advantages that we see. And one really maybe simple thing is you want to recruit patients for your studies. So if you have patient representatives right from the beginning in your project, they might help you and might tell you what are no-goes, what are things that you really shouldn't do if you want to find patients who are members of your studies. Or the other thing is like make information more intelligible, like the information that a patient gets if he wants to decide, do I want to participate in the study, yes or no? If this information is more intelligible, and if a patient tells you from the beginning, this is what you need to do, this is information that I understand. I think those are simple examples, but I think they're important.
Thank you very much. And you've said one important word from the beginning. Yes, it's not at the end that we need to lean on their experience and their knowledge. It's from the beginning. Thank you once again for your input, and you will probably have other questions later on. So now I'm coming to Beatrice. Beatrice, so you've heard all these comments on patient engagement and patient co-creation, because you're part of these two projects as a patient organization. So what's true in all this? What needs to be adapted to your thinking and to, of course, patients overall in this field? Up to you.
So, first of all, thank you for having me and having the European Liver Patient Association today. As patient association in both of the projects that are in the cluster, but also in generically speaking, when we work in other Horizon project, we focus on communication and dissemination. So that's always the main work package that we are dealing with, and it's a way to ensure that the project objectives and findings reach the patient community, reach the civil society, and also policy making in an effective way. We do that creating informative, of course, material, videos, and in a easy to understand language, of course, to ensure that the project reach an audience that doesn't have a medical background. What we are doing recently, I would say, because this is an emerging topic, is also trying to create trust in the data, health data collection and sharing, and also when there is an artificial intelligence tool involved, try to create trust among patients, because this is extremely important for the outcomes. We saw that it's, I would say, relatively easier among patient communities. So for us, it's much easier to reach our patient community. And also patients are more keen on trust, health data sharing and artificial intelligence, because they can see a return on their condition, and they see that this can improve the outcome, or they can, I mean, it can be extremely useful to find a new cure or develop a new medical device, and so on. It's extremely difficult on a general population, on a general audience level, because I mean, it's very, I don't know, it's very simple said like that, but if you don't have a disease, maybe you ask yourself, why should I share my data, or why should I? So we are also trying to work on that, but on this topic, we really need the synergy that a cluster can enhance. This is for us is a priority, because alone we cannot do that. And always, I mean, staying on this trust issue, to do that, we need also to create trust among the stakeholders. That is a bit what we were saying at the very beginning. Regarding including the patient perspective in research, of course, we see the benefit, but as long as the patient engagement is not just a tick the box exercise. So the engagement should be really meaningful, and it should be a real co-creation. And we saw the benefit for patient, but we saw also the benefit for the scientific advancement and the benefit for the whole society. An example that can be also easy to understand for everybody is when there is a clinical trial. That is not the case of Genial and Thrive, but that can give you an idea. When there is a clinical trial in one of the projects, so one work package is dedicated to the develop a clinical trial. If the patients are involved since the beginning, since the drafting the protocol, we saw that can increase recruitment, so making a better recruitment, but also it can increase adherence. We participated in another project, and we saw that the protocol as it was extremely complicated. For I mean, there were many invasive testing. It would have been extremely difficult for patients to participate in that and to keep up with all the schedule and everything. So we ask and we work together to change it, and this, of course, produce results at the end.
Yes, of course, probably one of the strong benefits for the clinical trials, at least. Of the co-creation, and as we were saying also with Alexia, from the beginning, because yes, if they understand and they follow the process of the goal of the research, of the techniques that are needed, then of course when they participate, yes, I understand that it's certainly easier to participate once you followed all the process. It's true for anybody. And my question also is in patient organizations, most of the time are dedicated to one specific disease. And so how do you find your, let's say, your work in the cluster, which of course deals with different diseases, but once again, we are saying that the cluster is there to share the techniques, the goals, and etc., which aren't automatically linked to the disease. How is this felt by the patient organizations themselves?
So the idea is promoting an approach that consider the patient more than their disease. But at the same time, a patient is somebody that when receive a treatment or is out of the hospital, the disease is not disappearing. So we need, what we are trying to do is includes consideration on quality of life as an overarching category. I know that is one of the 4 mission objectives, but it's certainly an overarching objective. And it's crucial for us to include more and more patient experience data. This is something that we are trying to push, no matter the organ of the disease is the focus of the research. This is extremely important at every step of research and development, but then, we can go further. I mean, I'm not, this is not the right place, but we can really push these, the inclusion of patient experience data from the early development to health technology assessment. So for us, this is extremely, consideration on that are extremely important. So I think we need to work all together, trying to include these data more and more. Yes, and that's beneficial for every kind of research in every field, in every medical field.
Good. So that gives us let's say, a good conclusion on this first part, is that once again, working in clusters when you're a specific research project, it's up to you to find the common tasks that you want to do together. And I find that this quality of life is also very, very important that you found amongst all the cancer patient organizations in this cluster. Once again, it's up to you to be able to find what is your overarching point of working together. So you've already started a bit on the last part of this panel discussion, which is moving a bit more to the communication, dissemination that we all know very well in our Horizon Europe and FP programs, that I often see as the last work package. And I always tend now to say, please do not put communication and dissemination as the last one. It's probably the most important to highlight. You've already pointed out a few items on that. I would like to reach out now to Frédéric. Frédéric, you're the coordinator of Gliomark. Hello. And so how do you tackle this communication, dissemination in the cluster field?
Yes. So, well, talking about communication, it's a very broad topic, and there's communication required at multiple levels. And so when we think of communication, there are, of course, all the various stakeholders that you want to include. We start obviously from patients and their families and their local environment, let's say. But then we have also clinical professionals, we have research institutes, we have then obviously also companies and industry partners. But then eventually to really make changes, you need also policymakers, which can be at the level of the local member state, but also eventually at a higher level of the EU. And while, of course, within all the individual projects, there is a clear connection. You already mentioned it in the previous discussion, that we are connected to patient organizations related to the disease that we are investigating. And as such, we have a megaphone, let's say, to that already those patients. But of course, we also need to investigate whether we can reach also a higher level and start to communicate across cancer types and try to really change things at a higher level for our patients. And so here I would like to use an example of the patient organization that is involved in our project. It's the Cancer Patients Europe organization. So they're actually in touch with a whole variety of cancer patient organizations across the different member states in the EU. And they have been using an approach where they try to summarize and become a voice that brings together topics that are required from each of these individual patient organizations, summarize it in some kind of manifestos and communication documents that they really have already achieved to get on the agenda of the European Parliament, of the European Commission, so that there is a common voice that summarizes the most important take-home messages to the highest level of policymaker. And of course, this can then bleed through to all the different local levels at the member state, but also then at the individual local cancer disease types. And so there are clear examples that communicating together, and certainly when there are common themes towards policymakers, is of course a much more powerful tool to make changes and to be heard, compared to when each of us would try to do that on an individual level. So I think that's also what we are aiming at within our cluster. Of course, there will be communication from each individual project with results and their particular stakeholders that they identified, their own patient organizations. But we also have to make sure that we can summarize issues that we encounter or challenges that we encounter, for instance, also inequalities that we encounter that really require a communication that is more summarizing across the different projects and really work at a cluster level.
Thank you very much. And I'll open also to the other panelists, if they are still with us, to have their opinion also on what they see in the challenges and the sexes of communication and dissemination. While they are opening the microphones and having ideas to share with us, I will also take this opportunity to remind all of you that we are starting a new Parliament at the European level. We will be having a new European Commission. It's important that the voices of the patients and the voices of the researchers come up very strongly now, because we still have to show that cancer is still an enormous societal challenge that we are still facing, but that we have a lot of progresses that are being made, and we have a lot of new instruments that have been established and that are promising to be able to have solutions. So yes, communicating to these high policy is important. Communicating also to patients and to the carers and to their families, to their employers, is also something which is difficult, which needs to be done in a professional way and in the national language, which is something which is complicated. Alexia, can I reach out to you and ask your experience on spontaneous messages from patient organizations at the ministry?
Excuse me, come again? What patients tell us?
Do you receive, because Frédéric was saying that they were preparing sometimes manifestos that they can send to members of parliament or to high-level policy makers. Do you receive such manifestos? Do you have requests from patients to be able to participate? You're reaching out to them, but do they reach out to you also?
I think it's less manifestos that we get. We're in a constant dialogue. We created like a group where we meet again and again, and we ask like, what are your issues? What is important to you? So it's more a dialogue and not like through big political messages. Communication is an important issue for us too. Especially if you go to prevention, you need a broader public. That it's not only cancer patients. You really need to address a broader public. So it's also something that we do. Last year, for example, or this year in February, we had a big event where that was also open to the public. And for us, it was the first try. We thought like, are people coming or not? And we had really a lot of people who came and who wanted to get informed. So I think there's a need for communication, and a lot of people are interested. And I think we should go further there.
So I think which is one message which is very important in your answer is that once the co-creation exists, there's no need for a manifesto. So I have Frédéric and Hossam who would like to take the floor. And after your two, let's say, interventions, we will close the panel so that we can have time for the audience to challenge us and give us their comments. So Frédéric first.
Yeah, so I would like to also follow up on the discussion you just had with Alexia. So of course, ideally, we would have a constant communication between all the stakeholders. But when we're talking at the cluster level, yeah, we are talking of probably over 100 already participants in each of the individual projects, which of course makes it much more challenging to have a constant dialogue. So I think we also need to find either working groups or need to establish something that can channel the voices of the different participants towards the policymakers as well. So ideally, there is of course constant communication, and that's something that can be done within a single project. I think that there it's very feasible. If there are projects that are already aligning in certain disease areas, it's probably already challenging, but still feasible. But across disease areas, I think it's much more challenging. So I think we also need to come up with a way to channel communication towards also policymakers, to avoid that there are over hundreds of initiatives in parallel, and rather try to aim for something common that can really have a proper voice towards policymakers and have a big impact. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And then Hossan, please put your microphone on. Yes.
We have several conventional techniques for communication and dissemination, including for the policymakers. But when we provide our output to the policymakers, we provide it in a summarized way, which is quite difficult to see and experience the pathway of suffer that the patient has during the daily life of diagnostics and the treatment. And I would say that as a person who has accompanied a patient with cancer in his daily life from the diagnostics to the treatment, it's totally different experience when you see the challenges of the documentation, the challenges of the diagnostics, the huge amount of delays, etc., etc., etc. All of that experience is not expressed in our communication or dissemination when we summarize it in one or few pages. So I think we have to think out of the box, a little bit out of the box, mainly for the policymakers to have a little bit hands-on to understand the real suffer that the patients have in their daily life and in their journey. We have to think a little bit about this experience and how we will implement it. But otherwise, I think any advancement will be gradual and relatively minor in this aspect.
So thank you for this comment, bringing us back to the patient and to the crucial aspect of communicating to the patient throughout the whole pathway that he is or she is going through. So I think thank you very much, Hossan, for that. Yes, it's a personalized communication that we need to be able to produce. So now I think we've managed quite well on our timing. So thank you very much for what you have already brought forward. I now turn to the audience and I ask you all members of the panel to be present to be able to answer the questions and the comments of the audience. I'll just remind the audience that, of course, unfortunately for the time, we will, of course, limit the questions and the comments to the session, which is on, as you've seen, these first impressions of working in the cluster regarding the stakeholders, the patients and the citizens' engagement and the communication and dissemination aspect. So Lucas has put the methodology in the chat. I'll just repeat it myself. So do not use the chat to ask the questions. Take the Mentimeter, which I hope Lucas will provide again, or raise your hands, and then Lucas will try and channel the questions so that the panelists can answer them. Lucas, did I do this right?
Yes, perfectly, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you,
Since I do not see any hands raised so far, we will start with a question from the Mentimeter. And this question is targeted to all projects. Did you manage to leverage additional funding or public support from national and other international sources to complement or upscale your endeavors? If so, any tips?
So this is probably early for the projects, but maybe you have already, some of you, either before the projects or during the projects, communicated at the national level. Is there somebody who wants to answer difficult question for the early projects?
Well, I can just highlight that any kind of significant investment, of course, always functions certainly within a more research fundamental environment as a hinge for and leverage towards future and additional funding. So of course to have double funding, that's usually difficult, but once you start generating results, that usually is used as a foundation to apply for additional funding schemes. I guess that's the question you were aiming at, right?
Yes, I think so. What I can also answer is that if I limit myself to the topic of this session, it's crucial also to have national funding, maybe for the communication and the engagement to the patient, because this, of course, needs to be done at the national level. And so, yes, it would be important to think during the course of the clusters to be able to see how the national funding can help in this engagement with the citizens and the patients and their communication. Lucas, another slide, another question?
Yes. The mission differs from conventional research by stimulating the involvement of unconventional actors such as citizens, policymakers, etc. What is your project doing about it, and what is your feedback?
So I think we've already answered some of these questions during the panel. Does somebody want to eventually summarize it better?
I would.
Thank you, Hassan.
Yeah, I would say a few words about it. In our project, we talk about the risk, not necessarily for those items that are known, such as smoking, but rather for new things that are hidden from our eyes as scientists or developers. And as such, gathering this information from the real life, from different geographies, from different ethnicities, and from different worldwide conditions, this is something that will increase the big data that allow us to leverage in order to get and gain more understanding on identifying those people at risk for cancer, and as such to develop the preventive approaches in order to deal with the challenge in our case with lung cancer. And the same, I think, with the rest of the projects, though in dealing with different cancer types or with different methodologies.
Thank you very much, Hassan. And I hope this answers the question. Yes, as it is new, and this is why I think it's very positive that Horizon Europe has taken it in the research and innovation programming. As Alexia was also saying, it's a change of culture, so it takes time. But this initiative of the mission concept allows us to be able to spend time in gathering these stakeholders together and to understand and to know how to get them to work together. So thank you for the question. Lucas?
Yeah, and I think there's a question that quite fits in that carp. Understanding is also to reach out to the public. How do you do that in your projects?
Anybody? Hassan, can you talk again about your night classes or whatever you call them? I just remember the night.
Yeah, this, we have mentioned that we will engage the public and we will outreach our results and advancements to the public throughout several events, such as workshops, nights of science events, yeah, in other aspects, we go also to schools. There is the so-called Women Day for Sciences that we have started to initiate, and we will leverage also more in several parts in different countries throughout our partners. And of course, we have this tradition that we open our scientific workshops and conferences also to the public. So a given portion of the audiences, we just open it for free for the public just to get into the conference. We have to lower down these borders between the scientific community and the social society, and this can be throughout free attendance to the conferences and probably participation in the discussion, or having the attitude to raise questions directly to the people that presents their work in those workshops.
Thank you, Hassan. Beatrice, do you want to maybe add a bit on your experience of how this can be done in engaging?
We have a large network of members at national level, and they have always been very active in disseminating further at national level all the material and all the videos and all the deliverables, let's call it in a technique, that we produced in the framework of the project. Also, we use social media a lot. So this is also a way for reaching as a huge number of people as possible. And yeah, all the some of the events that we organize and during which we disseminate the results of the project we are involved in are open also to the general public. So yeah, more or less it's the same experience.
So thank you very much. And yes, to answer the person who asked the question, once again, this is the benefit of these clusters, is to be able to share and identify different types of methods, which of course will be shared with the overall community. Lucas, next question.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm Susanna, and I would like just to add.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I couldn't see your.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, and what I'm saying is that one of our work packages is coordinated by a patients association, and they organize meetings in Brussels in which they are open to all the population and other associations, and we actively participate in these meetings. Also, we have meetings every month coordinated by them. And I also agree that social media are extremely important to disseminate to the general population. And it was just that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Susanna, as I know, because I wanted to ask you a question, but I couldn't see you.
Yes.
At the end of your session, I mean, I think that your presentation was very good, and there's the video. Was the video shown in the cluster and with your patient organization?
It was developed later, but in the next meeting for sure we will share it, and it will be available also in our websites.
Good.
That I think that is a way to promote it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Lucas?
We just had a raised hand by Bucena Kaminska, but he or she just lowered it again. So I don't know if Bucena Kaminska would like to take the floor.
Much. So I'm representing Heat Glial Consortium, and I would like to share our idea how we are planning to do this. So we decided, because we are planning to work on very difficult tumors in children for which there is no cure, and we realized that, for example, the taking care of such children for staff, families is very difficult. So we need to also work on methods to evaluate the stress of these people undergoing, and also somehow to moderate the stress. So we team up with patients organization, which is run by the quite famous actress, and she has contact with celebrities. So we decided to make several events for a public, including the 10K run, because we team up also with the PhD students from our institute who are training. So we decided that one of the events will be the 10K run, which will be public event open to others. The other way we are planning to work is to use the regular seminars of Brain Awareness Week and the seminars of foundation of our institute, which are public and are organized for school. So we plan a series of simple lectures to provide the information. So these are a few events we are planning. This is what we are also share with other people in our cluster. besides the typical ways like video or media releases? Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Bodzena. It's very good.
One of the next questions, Christine, is following. Since we talk about communication with the patients, with the data providers for studies, are you and how are you giving back the results of the studies to the patients so that they can benefit from the results as well?
Who wants to answer this question? Frédéric, Beatrice? I find that the question is really I mean part of the of each project, and it was highlighted also by Beatrice that it was part of the cluster to be able to provide the guidelines on how best to provide the results to the patient. Beatrice, you want maybe to...
For my understanding, there is no guidelines on that. So we have always, I mean, as ELPA, so I can give my association experience with ELPA. We've been fighting, you know, to let's say get back the results of any type of exam, clinical trial, or you know, in the framework, because we believe that those are you know, personal data, and you know, I mean, that can be shared, of course, and collected, but they needs to be shared back with the patient. I don't think that there is any common guidelines or any common. I think it's really project by project, but I see that as something we can work on at the cluster level.
Okay, so it's certainly something which is important, something which probably, and when Beatrice presented the fact that if the patients also were present at the beginning, then it's easier to understand later on. So it allows to provide a communication for other patients, which are probably easier. It's also part of what is called participating research. If the citizens and the patients participate early on, then of course they need to be able to have the results of the project in which they participated. Very good question, thank you.
Since we have 4 minutes left, maybe there's room for 2 very brief questions. In the consortia, in order to involve the community, not only post-diagnosis, do you involve the expertise of sociologists or behavioral scientists? The presented consortia appear to be very techno-scientific.
So it's something I wanted also to comment on. When Bodzena took the floor, she talked about evaluating, and I thought that it was also a research field communicating, and so I welcome this this question also. Alexia, it's a difficult question. How do you, in your Ministry of Education and Research, how is the field of communication, let's say, in working with other fields? Is this possible?
We actually found one project that's about prevention of cancer, and they have a communication scientist in it, because they say they already want to know, like, how can you communicate better to patients so that they not, it's not patients, it's actually society. How can you communicate better so that people hear prevention is important, and not only hear but also change their behavior. So we actually found a project where they themselves came up with the idea to implement communication scientists.
Thank you. So I think it's important also, yes, to understand that it's a dedicated science and a difficult field that we all feel difficult, and so we should lean also on the specialist. So thank you for the question. Lucas?
Yeah, the final question, and just a reminder, all the questions...
Oh, sorry, Frédéric. Lucas, I'm interrupting. Yeah. Frédéric wanted to say...
Yeah, I also wanted to add something to the former question, is that within our project, we do have a team of social scientists involved that look at behavior Certainly when you want to implement new methodologies or new approaches, so that you can very early on understand how a new technology or how a new approach will be adapted by patients, by their relatives, by clinical professionals, because it's very important to know this from the very beginning, so that once you reach a stage that also the scientific results are good enough, you know how to move forward and actually have it implemented.
Okay, so Lucas, maybe we can stop here because I think we've reached our time for this session.
Exactly.
So I would, yes, okay. So unfortunately, we cannot, of course, answer all the questions, but as Annika Novak said, we would try and come back to the ones who did not have time to answer. I would like to thank warmly the panelists who have participated in sharing their first impressions. I can stress that it's the first of these clusters and of this panel discussions webinar. I've certainly learned a lot, so I hope that not only the panelists but also the audience have learned new ways of working together and the benefit, I cannot stress more, of working in the mission approach. So thank you very much, and I think you've all deserved a break before the next session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. And yes, indeed, short break before we resume for the second panel with Dr. Ben Westphalen. Thanks.
Do you want to remind them to put their...
The floor is yours, Annika and Benedict.
Thank you, Abigail, and I hope you enjoyed the short coffee break, because now we are heading to another interesting panel. Let me remind you that if you have questions then during the question time, use the Mentimeter. We will put it then again that you can reconnect if needed. And you can also raise your hand so we can let you in during the discussions. So welcome back. We will now continue with the second panel, which is about ensuring the early uptake of research results from the Understanding Cluster projects. Our moderator for this panel is Dr. Benedict Westphalen, who is member of the Cancer Mission Board. So just looking what I should remind you further, but I think we have done that. Again, please focus your questions on the panel. We will take note of your other questions, and I can say that we have received during the first panel a few technical questions regarding arrangements and things. We can come back to that, but we thought it's not really part of the discussions. So with that, I would like to hand over to Ben. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to chair this second session, which will now cover a very important topic on how to translate and then take everything that has been learned in the wonderful projects that we're going to discussion one step further and implement these research results into tools that then can be offered to a greater group of patients and spread on. And in order to discuss this, we have a fantastic panel set up here. First up is Marcus Soidakis, the coordinator of LMUMI, covering the topic of monoclonal gammopathies and them progressing into multiple myeloma in the Understanding Cluster Risk Factors and Determinants. Then we have Rosa Pignol, the scientific manager of the THRIVE project, again of the Understanding Cluster, which covers tumor host interactions. Then Stéphane Lejeune, coordinating an IMI2 project, ImmuneCAN, which aims to understand how the immune system and tumors interact, and how this then impacts therapeutic interventions. Next up, Karine Rossignol, CEO and co-founder of Smart Immune, a clinical stage biotech company developing Pro T-cell, a therapy platform to fully and rapidly rearm the immune system, enabling next generation allogenic T-cell therapies. And then last but not least, Elena Dominic, coordinator of International Research Programs, Institute of Health, Carlos III, Spain. So I'm super excited to have all of you as panelists. And I will start all of you sort of the same question, which is an obvious one, but also a very difficult one. What are your next potential steps once the project and the project funding finishes to ensure a successful uptake of results? And I start with Stefan. ImmuCAN finishes at the end of 2025. Who do you foresee as the end users for your project results? And maybe then following up on that, what advice would you give to other research groups to ensure good uptake of research results? I know this is complicated, but I'm looking very much forward to your answer.
Thank you very much for your nice introduction. But maybe rapidly, a few words about the result of ImmuCAN. So we are studying the resistance mechanism to immunotherapy. And for doing that, we will be collecting biological material and the related clinical data from up to 3,000 patients from 5 different cancer groups. All those samples will be subject to immunoprofiling using different technology. And we are going to combine the data from the molecular data and cellular data and integrate them with the clinical data. And with that, we're going to do many analyses and try to understand better the micro environment, but also to identify better new marker for resistance to immunotherapy, and maybe also to design better drugs. So those are the results. So what we will have, and what we start to have, is a huge database of clinical data, but also molecular and cellular data that will be open for future use by the research community, especially after the end of the project. And also, we are going to have a leftover biological material that was not used, or there's still some unused part that could be also subject to future research. So our future user will be the whole international scientific community interested in the field of immunotherapy in cancer. But so many clinicians, but could be also drug developer. They want to design better treatment, but also all companies interested in developing or even refining their existing profiling technology, or all the AI tools that can be used to interpret or to make use of those kind of genomic and cellular data.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. Maybe following up on that, in your last part, you mentioned industrial partners who are supplying all of the immunotherapeutics that we use in the clinic today. So my question would be, are you trying to expand the reach of immunotherapeutics, making them available to more patients? So I know this is a political question, but obviously someone having a therapeutic in the market already with a label is not that much interested in understanding how you can make the label smaller, but actually have more patients benefiting from these very powerful drugs. So are you trying to refine in this direction as well with your consortium?
Yes, indeed. That's important. So we are covering 5 types of cancer, and in some of those cancer types, immunotherapy is not well developed or not very effective. So that project will allow to understand better which patient may benefit from which immunotherapy.
Thank you very much.
The idea of expansion, I think, is there as well.
Yeah, super exciting. And maybe last but not least, a very short answer. You mentioned up to 3,000 patients. That's a trove of data. Very, very interesting. At what point are you reaching this goal?
Now we have reached the 2,000 patients, and we are going to reach the 3,000 within 6 months.
Wonderful. So this is so important also from the mission perspective that we are actually using the money to reach the goals that we have set. So congratulations on this. Super excited to see the results. So next up, we have Marcus from El Mumai. Very interesting, although I'm mostly doing oncology, I had to train in hematology and MGs going into multiple myeloma, not well understood. So Marcus, can you maybe discuss a little bit what you're doing in your cluster and how cluster-based research projects can then translate into clinical practice or further steps, and maybe also what you've learned yourself from working in a cluster.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing these points up. So I have prepared a small slide here to discuss about how we interacted between the cluster and the understanding cluster. So there are 5 programs, and we have already met actually last September in San Sebastian. And it was really very useful because early on, our projects were running for about 6 to 7 months. We were able to connect, exchange information on the initial stages of our projects. And now we have another meeting set up in October in Lyon, and we are going to meet again, and this time it's going to be much more substantial because there we are going to exchange on the short term right away protocols and biological resources. And I want to give you some specific examples from the ELMAMI project. So there is a challenge actually when we are doing hematological cancer studies because the material is very, very limited. There are so tiny cell pellets that you cannot even see them. They are telling us there are 10,000 cells in this tube. Can't see anything. Yet from this invisible cell pellet, my colleagues were able to develop a protocol that allows to isolate DNA, RNA, and proteins, and thus be able to use this single cell pellet to do the 3 omics approaches that give a nice molecular profile, namely genomics, transcriptomics, and proteomics. And we are going to share this protocol with all the members of our cluster. And actually, we are writing a paper there too, in order to publish it and share it widely with the scientific community. So this is a protocol that can be shared. Another interesting biological resource that we are developing within the ELMAMI project is a humanized mouse model. So what is that? So we have to use mouse models in order to understand the development of the disease. But mouse models are injected with human cells, human malignant cells, and they have a mouse immune system. So our colleagues have developed a mouse model that has a transplanted human immune system. So it's going to be really interesting to see the battle between the immune system and the malignant cell within a mouse that looks a lot like a human being. And this mouse model is still in development, but as soon as we get it, I think it's going to be within the first 6 months of 2025, we will again publish it and share it with anyone interested within the cluster and beyond. So those two aspects of information exchange might seem a little bit cryptic for the general public, but on the long term in the ELMAMI, we have some clinical trials that are going on, and those are going to be are going to offer us interesting data. And moreover, actually, now that we are again discussing and we are presenting our data to conferences, we are trying to establish connection with pharmaceutical companies, and based on our initial findings, be able to initiate novel clinical trials that are going to test new therapeutic targets and new drugs and new biomarkers. And those are going to be really critical for improving the patient management in multiple myeloma. I think this is very important, and I think this touches upon a question that was asked in the previous panel. How can we find money, additional resources? Well, I can tell you within the cluster, all projects, we are going to actively pursue pharmaceutical companies to initiate clinical trials, because this is the way really to go over this obstacle of putting our research results in clinical practice. So that was all from my side.
Thank you very much. I really like the team spirit approach that you put forward, sharing research results, sharing best practices, super important. And to all of you listening, but especially to our cluster members, maybe a little bit of advertisement. You know that the first group of the Cancer Mission Board came up with the idea of a comprehensive research repository platform, UncanEU, where data from projects that have generated huge amounts of translational data, omics data, can be made available to the greater public. This is still in the making, but first calls are out. So I believe maybe this could be something to even expand the reach of the projects that we're discussing today. So next up, I hope I pronounced it right, Roser. Our question to you now is, what issues do you face in ensuring the uptake of your results? And then this is also a very broad question. So what tools would be needed? What support do we need to translate results from patient-centric translational clinical research to then go into the next phase of getting it into a product or a tool that is readily available across the union?
Okay, thanks for the questions. First, in Thrive, we are living with liver cancer, which is a very dismal disease. It's the third cause of cancer death, so it has a really huge impact. And in the consortium, we are dealing with adult liver cancer, and also with pediatric liver cancer. So this is a very broad and important project. So as main outputs, we hope to obtain determinants that lead these people to develop liver cancer, and as well as biomarkers of response and resistance to the current treatments, and to propose treatments for the patients that are currently resistant. So as you say, so we have long, short-term the results that we will have. They will be uptaken by the society in a short term. So this would be like, as you mentioned, the UNCAN, for example, initiative. We have already 7,000 samples that we will have from them structured data that for artificial intelligence, for example, and this will be available for the community through probably the UNCAN initiative. And then there is a long term, right? The uptake of the results at the long term. And here we really need to be connected with policymakers to transfer all the results once validated, of course, in prospective studies. So once these results are validated, we need really the connection with health professionals, with patients, and I think working together, we can consolidate this in a much better way.
So maybe super impressive. Maybe a short follow-up question. So when you do translational research and all of these important investigations, do you foresee a parallel development, maybe an advice giving body, how this could then translate a little bit faster? I'm not talking about this going into biotechs straight, but maybe there are so many regulatory steps for a given test, an intervention to become a clinical tool. Do you see advice throughout the actual research component to see, well, this could be at some point a product, a tool that then needs to go into the formal regulatory system? Is this something that you could imagine?
Yeah, I mean, first, being in a consortium already brings you inputs from many people that share experience. And in addition of the consortium, we are now in the understanding cluster, which is a broader unit with much more different expertise from different cancer fields. And I think we all gain from this knowledge being shared and these suggestions that you just mentioned, that I think they are very positive, that we learn from each other in order to advance faster and bring the results faster to the patients.
Wonderful. So this nicely now translates to Marcus, you have raised your hand. Maybe we hold your question before we have all the others on. No worries.
It's not a question, it's a remark, a follow-up on what my colleague said. So, and I need to share this with the wide community. So for drugs, there is a specific regulatory pathway in the EU, and we can deal with that. However, for biomarkers, there is not a clear regulatory pathway. And I wanted to share this with the policymakers. We have a problem here at the European level to approve biomarkers in clinical use. For drugs, we are okay. But for biomarkers, we have to do something. So sorry if I take your time, but I think it is important.
Well, we have the EU in vitro diagnostics regulation, which aims to help with biomarker development. Maybe we can, discuss then on the panel later on. So, Karine, next up, you have transitioned as a CEO and co-founder of Smart Immune. I imagine from bench work and translational research now into an actual company. So what would you need, from the research society, from people still purely in the academic setting to inform your research, and what could have helped you along the way of transitioning to be faster, more agile, more successful? I'm not saying that you're not successful, but what could have been even better?
So thank you for the invitation and for the question. Actually, I can rebound on what Rosa and Makis have just pinpoint. So let me maybe share some element of context quickly. So we are a spin-off of the Imagine Institute in the Necker Hospital campus in France. My two co-founders, Dr. Marina Cavazzana and Isabelle André, have developed a technology enabling to turn hematopoietic T cells into T-cell progenitors in 7 days instead of the 15 months needed by the bone marrow to transform them into, this very specific moment of the T-cell lineage, where they are ready to go into the thymus, but are not educated yet to what we call self and non-self. So I know that there is a lot of scientists participating here, so I hope they get roughly the sense of what we do. We know, and then it's transfer also, I can rebound on what Stefan just shared, on this need of understanding how the immune system can tackle, tumors. What we aim to do is to rebuild a fully functional T-cell compartment in patients affected by life-threatening cancers and infections, because we know that T cells are absolutely key to erase the cells affected by either mutation translating into tumors or a pathogen. So in the case of acute leukemia, we're already in clinical trial, and our primary endpoint is actually a relevant surrogate biomarker, the threshold of CD4. We are able to provide in less than 100 days to patients who don't have any immune functional system anymore. So again, Makis, you're right. If we were able to validate the fact that, because it's the case in the US, but it's not the case in Europe, that the number of CD4 by microliter at 100 days, and in our case, it's even better because we demonstrate we can do it at 60 days. So if this number of CD4 is a relevant biomarker of an improvement of your overall survival, and you can see that at 2 months, but the benefit really on relapse is only measurable at 2 years, 3 years, it allows to go much faster into the development and the optimization of the validation of the drug product than if you have to wait. And today, it's true that on a regulation, we would need that kind of tool. Now, to answer better your question, Benedict, what would have really helped us is that we didn't, even now, we have initiated the development of the platform in allogeneic stem cell transplantation. That's part of our DNA. It was obvious. But the drug product we're developing, which is a cell therapy, so progenitors, we infuse them, they go directly in the thymus, and they can really rebuild fully functional T cell in a matter of weeks, can not only be game-changing for acute leukemia patients, but also for head and neck cancer patients, for example, who are not responding properly to Pembro. And then I turn to Stefan and would ask him, Stefan, can you please help me to understand in those patients, are they really lymphodepleted? We do think so because, for example, in T-cell engager multiple myeloma patient treated, now they are affected by such profound viral infections that they have to stop the treatment. So it makes us think to HIV, and we do think that they must be really lymphopenic, but we don't have the formal proof. So if you speak to solid oncologists and you speak to them about CD4, they look at you like that because they are not used to follow, especially, that's T-cell or that's immune reconstitution. So I think that the more data we have, the better we are all together to understand what is the underlying rationale and how to tackle better, each subpopulation who shows different response to those treatment. I don't know whether my question was too long.
No, that's
response. Sorry, was too long.
No. We feel your enthusiasm, but also you nicely pointed out where you can be supporting what needs to happen. So really, the question then being, if you, as you nicely pointed out, think outside of the box, how do you, where do you see the most important exchange platforms? You must have a strong network yourself, and you go to conferences. So all of this one can read up online, but what could we as a cancer mission, or how could we promote this sense of teamwork that clusters implement? How can we make this even more available, broader? What can we do other than running webinars, obviously?
So webinar is already great. I think that the UNICAN you propose is definitely a good way to trigger. And I think that if I maybe be a little bit optimistic here, what would be great is maybe by big, I would say, pathway, if you could organize some specific session where we have fundamental research, translational research, biotech, and even pharma group, I'm sure, we and put them together. There is obviously some, new project going to emerge from that because the need is huge. And it's great to see, all the expertise you managed to put together. The challenge is huge. So if we want to tackle it, we need all expertise around the table. So the cluster, if I understood it well, has a mission to put the right people, together. So definitely sharing the data is one of them. But for example, in our case, what we would need and what we would dream of would be an animal model, a mice model, who could be, somehow who could tolerize human cells, but would be also able to differentiate those human cells. And today, those models don't really exist. So we don't have even to go to, to translational, and it would be useful for the whole field, a right way to really project how those cells are going to behave into human.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you. So then again, last but not least, Elena, representing a governmental organization, what would you need in order to take forward the project's results, if they are relevant or valuable to you, but also to the community? So both in terms of translating it from research results into, again, tools, products, but then also communication-wise. We all have press people working in our institutions, but I believe reaching even further out. How could you envision this?
Thank you, Benedict, and thank you for inviting our institute to this panel. As you mentioned, as a governmental organization that is both a research performer and funder, strongly committed with the translation of results to the national health system, I will try to give you an overview with some examples of what the Institute do regarding that. So as funders, the Institute launches an annual call, and to give you some numbers, in 2022, invest 170 million euros in funding more than 500 applied projects. 2% of them were technological development projects, whereas 9% of them were towards the non-commercial clinical studies. A second way to take forward the project's result is paying attention to their potential for commercial exploitation. A good example is the call launch for collaborative projects with the joint participation of companies with research centers from the national health system that intended to generate results of industrial applicability. Under this call, in 2022, again, to give you some numbers, the Institute, in collaboration with the Center for Technological Development and Innovation, funded 37 projects in personalized medicine and advanced therapies with almost 10 million euros. This transferability to the market it is also promoted internally by our knowledge transfer office, but furthermore with the platform ITEMAS. This is a platform created by the Institute to enhance the transfer of the research results produced at the national health system. The Institute is, as well, as I said before, a research performer. So by generating scientific evidence, the Institute acts as well as health policy advisor by playing an essential role in the national network of disease surveillance, prevention, and control through the National Center of Epidemiology and Microbiology. It is also of utmost importance, as my colleagues mentioned before, that physicians take up the research results to the clinical practice. In this regard, the Institute supports the Spanish platform for clinical research called SCREN, that is a network constituted by clinical research units from hospitals distributed across Spain. to support non-commercial clinical research. Currently, there are 240 active clinical trials from phase 1 to phase 4, including advanced therapies. On those, 50% of that are cancer-related trials. And lastly, I would like to mention patient engagement, as it is increasingly recognized as an integral part of research planning. In this regard, the Spanish Mirror Group of Cancer Mission and the Institute bring in patients in the evaluation process of research projects, especially in clinical trials, in order to align the use of resources with patients' priorities. I cannot hear you.
Sorry, I had muted you. And so you have quite a broad and comprehensive portfolio from very early to actually clinical research. Your investigators, if you fund a project, and once they make a discovery, how do you promote the results to the public? Is there any communication component to it, social media, local and national press, but then also to a more international community? Do you follow up on this as well?
Well, I would also like to mention that the Institute acts as a backbone of the research in the national health system. This is by coordinating collaborative research structures across Spain. So, for instance, the Institute certifies health research institutes. That is a model of collaborative research to join the effort of hospitals, universities, and research centers in order to fully develop their research capacities. Moreover, another structure is coordinated one supported by the Institute, the Biomedical Research Consortium, the so-called CBER. That is a distributed network of basic and clinical researchers that work together to facilitate the laboratory research that reaches patients. I mean that we have an alliance with the Research Institute and also with this consortium. So we act as a backbone of research. We offer a dialogue with this institute and this consortium, and we also are the connection of the internationalization, not only for our researchers of our national centers, but also throughout across Spain through this research institute and this biomedical consortium. So we also have a dialogue with the Ministry of Health Science. So we act as this connection between the national health system, Europe, and the national structures. I don't know if this answers your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Very comprehensive. I'm a bit wary of time, so before you all jump onto the virtual panel, I have one question to the audience. Are there any representatives from cancer charities, for example, that have funding available to them, and if they see themselves in the role of maybe accelerating and further pushing data that came from the web lab or was done in translational science to then move ahead, or whether this is not so much up their alley in the end. We'll wait a second.
Yes, so far I don't see any hands raised, Ben.
Okay, good. So then we, Karine has her hand raised.
Sorry, if there is some patient association, I would love to hear from them, just because what is really important, and especially on all this, T-cell medicine, is the quality of life of patients post-treatment. So there's lots to be done here, and taking into account really the way we can improve them beyond what is collected by the clinician. It's really key for all the stakeholders of the cluster. Sorry.
Wonderful. So I have a question lined up that would end the seminar if I ask it to all of you, because it will be quite long, but I would like to translate it maybe into a flashlight. So for each of the projects and institutions, if you had one key stakeholder that you would want to listen to you to take your project to the next stage, who would that be? And let's see, we start with Stefan.
Yes, so I think the key stakeholder are the researcher from academia, from the industry, because it's for them that we create that resource of data and biological material.
Wonderful. Marcus?
Yeah, so I'm going to repeat myself. It is pharmaceutical and biotechnological companies that are going to do clinical trials to approve biomarkers and new therapies in the clinical setting. That's the critical point there.
Rosaire?
I would say the European Union and the Cancer Mission is already a key point for promoting all our efforts and helping us to work together and forcing us to do something that otherwise we are not used to. And I think it's good to have that so.
Corinne, from your side? I believe you're on mute at this point.
So I would say that the fuel for all of us at the end of the day, it's finance provider. So even the small company like us, but the researcher need to have the right financial, mean and fuel to basically provide the data, which are absolutely essential to all what we do together. So I guess at the end of the day, in Europe, there is also more globally a finance, maybe financial challenge that we need to find a way to tackle.
Always the money. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's so sad, but it's true.
I know. And then last but not least, again, Elena, your perspective, if there was one person, one entity that you really wanted to listen to you, who would that be?
To listen to us, or that we should listen? Because that
listen to you. So the stakeholder that you want to address to push your agenda forward.
So as the healthcare is for improving people's life, I guess that if we reach maybe the Ministry of Health in the in the portfolio of common services of the national health system, so our research results could improve the quality and the treatment that people receive.
Wonderful. A full spectrum. We've thanks for being precise here. We now have 20 minutes time to listen to and answer to questions from the audience. So here is our Menti QR code. Lucas, any questions to the panelists up to now?
Yes, as with the previous panel discussion, I invite everyone to raise their hands and take the floor to also ask the question personally. But we have a question from the Mentimeter, which I will now read. So the question is whether patients from all EU countries can benefit from participation in IMUCAN and other studies presented here. How could they get the information?
I think it's for me. Yes, all patients could participate to IMUCAN and benefit from it. But just to be clear, so it's a translational research project, but in order to make patient and clinician contributing with patient material beneficial, one of the service we offer is to get a molecular report within 6 weeks, generated from the material that the clinician share with us. And of course, this molecular report can be taken by a tumor molecular board, which could take a therapeutic decision based on that. So that was an added value for the patient itself. Otherwise, in a wider perspective, it will take some time before all the data available from IMUCAN will be translated in result that can be really concretely implemented. And this is a start, and there will be a future research that will take place.
Thank you. And I've seen that Penilla also, she should be knowing that how this works. Put it into the chat. But this is an interesting question, Penilla. Maybe you raise your hand and show yourself with your question to our panel. Now I put you on the spot.
Thank you. I'm not sure I'm visible, but anyway.
No,
ECPDC, the European Cancer Patient Digital Center that will come, I guess, into the autumn time is really beneficial for patients to share their knowledge and results from treatments and also be part of research themselves. I think someone else is maybe better than me to really explain the beneficials that will come for patients, but that is exclusively for patients, I would say, while UNCAN is for research in itself. So I'm really eager to see what will come from that, but we have had several patient organizations to be part in how it should look and how it should be performed. So to see what it will look like, I think I'm not the only one to really looking forward to that. Thank you.
Karin?
What I was proposing is that it's true that we are including patients in our clinical trial in Europe and in the US. We're in clinical stage. The dose is really finalized, and we have roughly 30 patients to be included in the adult acute leukemic trial we are leading. So it's all, the decision is obviously to the PI, principal investigator who are leading the study. But it's true that the more the community is aware of the ongoing clinical trials, the larger the chance of those patients to be possibly included if they fit the criteria is high. So I guess that it has been discussed already, but it's true that any new tool or improved tool to enhance the information circulation regarding ongoing clinical trials would be beneficial to all the stakeholders, to me.
Thank you. I have a question to those working in the cluster. Sometimes investigators with great ideas might shy away from embarking on a European journey because it is challenging to get these large consortia together. Obviously, you've managed quite well and are super enthusiastic and bring your projects into fruition. So leading by example, what are your best practice examples on how to bring these projects to the starting ramp, but then also to a successful completion, encouraging Europeans to still go on this journey, maybe. Marcus, you want to start?
Yes, okay. So the first point is to find a good consortium. We all have our networks. We just have to reach out and create the consortium. Then we have to write the application and manage the grant. And I have to be blunt with you, it's impossible for any academic institution to do this. The bureaucratic burden is just overwhelming. So in all my successful applications, I had a specialized company who helped us write the grant, is helping us managing the grant and also in the dissemination. That's my personal experience. I know not of a single academic person who managed to write and manage a grant on its own. We need expert grant managers to do that. And believe me, it is terrible. The burden is terrible, but the rewards and the discoveries are worth the effort.
Yes, so hammer that point maybe a little bit stronger. That's once you've overcome this first step, the actual teamwork most probably overcomes this tedious part in the first. So
sorry,
Jose
if I may add a little thing, here I have to recognize the leadership of Professor Hossam Haik, who is really the coordinator of coordinators in the cluster. So it's him who put us together last September in San Sebastian in person. We will meet again in person. I think it is important in those big clusters to have in-person meetings. Webinars are good, but you really have to see eye to eye with other people, and then this is where the magic happens and the real synergies occur.
And Stefan and Jose, what are your take homes from working in these clusters?
I think. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Go on.
No, go. Sorry. Well, okay. So I think everything the previous speaker mentioned is right. You need a good consortium. You need especially a good core group that will take the decision and will manage the project on a daily basis. You need to be multidisciplinary. You need to spend a lot of energy in communication to check mutual understanding of what is expected and how we are going to do. And that is very huge. And it takes time. Everything takes time. And as was said, face-to-face meetings are very important to check mutual understanding. Otherwise, you start to have a journey to hell. And no, that's the main point, indeed.
Anything to add from your side?
Yeah, on our experience, I can only agree with what they have said. You need to put a strong consortium with professionals and from all areas, and that they are a good core team that works together, also important. And yeah, the rest was everything covered. Thank you.
Thanks. Lucas, anything else from the audience?
Yeah, there are two further questions. One is following. Restrictive regulation makes it progressively more difficult to carry out animal experiments in cancer research. Does this hinder the early uptake of research results, for example, El-Mami mouse model?
Well, since this is direct to me, I can tell you that the current regulatory status for lab animal testing is satisfactory. We can do our work. It's okay. And I'm sorry if I repeat myself, we need to solve the issue with approval of biomarkers at the European level. There we have a regulatory gap and a competitive disadvantage compared to the US. For the lab animals, we are good, in my opinion.
I think it could be, if I may complete, I think it could be quicker. The ethical, but maybe it's only a French issue, but we can lose as long as 1 year to get, animal experiment approved. And for pharmaceutical, I would say young company, it's time is really an issue in the global competition running, as you can imagine. So it's true that if we could have additional way, maybe the first question is that, is it only a French issue or is it a global issue?
This most probably goes to the rest of the panel, or?
Yeah, or to at least the panelist here, the expert on the screen. Maybe it's only a French issue, and in that case, I'm sorry to have brought it up.
I'm afraid it's an European issue. Huh? All the regulations are not helping. We are more familiar with the clinical trial regulation, but that's it's creating a huge gap for all clinical trials, especially the one run by academics. We heard about the problem with the IVDR and everything around that. And for sure, we need to simplify and make sure that Europe stay on the map of research and development. That is clear.
This couldn't be more clearly in line with the cancer mission to really tackle these issues and move ahead. There was a second question, Lucas, you said?
Yeah. So thank you for answering the first one. The second is the presented consortia seem to be very post-diagnosis oriented rather than moving the policy agenda to the more effective way of reducing cancer mortality.
Sorry if I may, I have to disagree with this question, and I can give you the specific example of the project that I coordinate. We are trying actually to prevent even the occurrence of cancer. So we are trying to stop the apparition of multiple myeloma at the preclinical, pre-symptomatic stage. So, yeah, I think we are trying to innovate there.
Okay, great. Any other of the panels want to comment on that?
Most probably, I mean, there's far more research going on than what we've seen today. And I believe all of the projects that we've seen presented try to answer and are already answering very pressing questions in cancer research. So yes, there are more questions, but maybe in terms of showcasing what we have right now, this was a selection. So before we bring this to an end, maybe again from going back to the project clusters, if you would have done anything differently, so now looking back, whole process of getting a consortium together, having someone help you with your grant applications, starting your research, which is most probably the most exciting part once your actual stuff happens. Is there anything that specifically within the cluster setting that you would have done differently, or what you would want others embarking on this journey to know?
Okay. If I may say something, again, we had a big problem with acquiring well-annotated clinical samples. And I don't know if other programs in the cluster have this issue. So some clinical partners claim that they had hundreds of samples. And then when we had to implement the project, to my horror, I realized that there weren't as many as they were claiming in the beginning. So that was a big issue. We are still struggling with it. So my advice to future coordinators is to make sure that the claims about data and clinical sample availability are validated before submitting the application. And that was the only problem, major problem we had.
Thanks. Good. Then final thoughts, statements, again in the flashlight version. Anything that you want to give out to the audience of this webinar? Now we start from the bottom of the list. Elena, anything that you want to give us out on this Thursday afternoon now?
Maybe to stress the importance of the patients and the patient's engagement, and also the the scientific societies that are included in the Cancer Mission and the charities that are also included in the mirror groups of the Cancer Mission. And I think that we have to listen to other stakeholders than the usual ones.
Wonderful. Then we go on to Karine. I believe you're mute again. Sorry.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Certainly a big enthusiasm on this cluster and all the new tools that are developed and the possible new project, which will certainly emerge quickly from those global collaboration. It's very exciting. So much to be done.
Wonderful. Then we go on to Stefan.
I think what's important is to emphasize the importance for the research community, but all stakeholders, including patients, to participate to those large projects that are likely to reach critical mass, able to move the things forward. And we should not be worried, but of course it takes energy, and with goodwill it's possible to find solutions to almost everything. There's some limit, of course, but let's be positive.
Wonderful. So now that I've spent a whole seminar trying to come up how to pronounce your name rightly, is it Roser or?
That's Rosé.
Roser, sorry. But then your take home from today.
Yeah, well, I need to say that every person that it's working together in our understanding cluster, it's amazing the energy that they bring into the project and to get things done. It's amazing, and I can only thanks everyone that's pushing this effort together forward.
Super. And then Marcus.
Yeah. So I have a single word to say. Synergy. This is the key word for the cluster to work together. And this is the general spirit that we have. I mean, I'm very excited, very happy to be in this multidisciplinary team. And I'm certain that we are going to make significant advances, or we're going to make changes. So we just have to keep up the good work.
That's a perfect ending. So then I hand back over to the organizing team. Annika, Jan.
Thank you, Ben, and to all the panelists for your engagement. We can see that on our side. So many thanks for that. With that, we close the two panel discussions, and it leaves us to have some closing remarks from Jan. Over to Jan.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to close this interesting first policy webinar. On behalf of the Cancer Mission Secretary, I want to first thank, of course, our Vice Chair, Christine Sommier, our board member, Ben Westphalen, but also the board members who I saw were online, like Pernilla and Nevenka. I also want to thank all you speakers in the panels for your participation, the colleagues in ADEA for their contributions. And just to let you know that this Cancer Mission is all about co-creation and synergy. So I thank you that you also mentioned that because that's what we are constantly trying. So co-creation, synergies, setting up synergies, working when we work with citizens, with stakeholders, with member states, and many other people. So we will certainly reflect on what we heard today while we are moving forward with this Cancer Mission. And with this, I mean that seriously, because we are currently working on Work Program 2025. So we are looking into how we can improve what we write in these core topics when it comes to co-creation, when it comes to working together through participative research methods, and in other things that we are thinking of at the moment. I just want to mention that, and I give you a few examples of this co-creation. So We have now this work program open 2024. So in 2024, we of course want to see that the proposals that are going to be submitted and the best ones, we are going to support them and get them up and running. Together with our colleagues in Santé who are in charge of the Youth Speed Cancer Plan. And as you know, we are working very closely together on these two big initiatives. We are also constantly in a dialogue and in working together. So what we hear today may also be used for our future work, for example, with the Youth Speed Cancer Plan. Now, in 2024, I want to mention we have also on the 8th of October, we have an important conference on palliative care. As you know, it's a very important issue in cancer. Registrations are about to open. And third, we have just published our first Cancer Mission newsletter. We will send you a copy of this so that you can have a taste of and see what we're trying to achieve, also when it comes to synergies. And then in 2024, still, we want to organize at least 2 more policy webinars at the end of this year, which are addressing the 2 other objectives of this cancer mission, and which is, of course, prevention and early detection, and the other one is diagnosis and treatment. So to again work with you and other stakeholders in this area of research and the projects that we have supported, we are thinking of inviting projects, not only from the mission, but also as we did today, as you will see from the abstract book that we are going to send you. Also invite projects and stakeholders who have been supported through the EIC, through Digital Europe, through EU for Health, through the EIT Health Program, through the ERC, and so on and so forth. So that is what we're planning. But thank you very much for the feedback. You are going to receive more information after this policy webinar, and I would just like, on behalf of the Cancer Mission Secretariat, thank you for this participation and wish you a great summer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.